Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox recording here, critiquing subscriber mixes, episode 20. So before we dive into this group of mixes submitted by my loyal subscribers, I just want to let you know, and I want you to be aware that so much of a great sounding production and mix comes down to just understanding basic EQ and compression moves within your mix. And because of this, I'm offering you direct access for absolutely free to my crisp and clear heavy mix formula. The heavy mix formula comes with a straightforward PDF cheat sheet that contains all of my starting points for both EQ and compression on all of the main instruments within a heavy mix. Within the cheat sheet, there are clickable links to private tutorials for each of the main instruments, along with a multi-track download that accompanies each lesson. Download the multi-tracks and mix along with me and help achieve the sound that you're looking for within your own mixes, all by understanding basic EQ and compression moves that actually make a real difference in the real world, regardless of the gear that you're using. So with that out of the way, let's dive into this group of mixes submitted by subscribers. And our first mix here comes from Mr. Magnus. Let's see what we got. Okay, and Magnus, I really like what I'm hearing. Overall, the production sounds great, performances sound great, tones sound great. Now your mix is very limited and very squashed, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It sounds more like it's an artistic choice or decision. I would leave a little more headroom, but again, that's my own personal opinion. My main comment, the main thing that's standing out to me that might be a slight detriment to your mix is that the hi-hats sound really, really loud. In general, I would take your cymbals, especially your hi-hat, if you have control over just the hi-hat alone, and just bring it down a pretty significant amount. Remember, hi-hats bleed into everything and they cut through and mix super easily. So if you're a drummer, don't worry, we can still hear your hi-hats, just turn them down a little, just so they're not, abrasive sounding, especially when listening on smaller speakers. If you're mixing on bigger speakers with a sub, the hi-hats are not, or the high end in general, is not gonna be as obvious because all of that low end fullness is gonna kind of take center stage and also just round out the sound a lot. But if you're listening on smaller speakers, your high frequencies, upper mids, and just the mid range, and again, the frequencies that are not the low end are gonna be much more obvious. So long story short, just turn your hi-hats down and I think it'll greatly improve your mix, but excellent work overall, and keep me posted on your future productions. All right, mix number 2 comes from Matt. Okay, Matt, I love what I'm hearing. Really dig the attitude. This reminds me of like older hardcore that I used to listen to back in the day, just with much better production, meaning your production is much better. I love the tones, everything sounds great, musicianship sounds great, songwriting sounds great. The only thing I can honestly come up with, and again, this is just my own personal opinion, it's what stood out to me. I hear a lot of mid-range information on your kick drum that's kind of like really not taking my head off, but it's really popping out to me. So it's hard for me to not pay attention to the kick drum. Now, if this is what you're going for, then completely ignore this advice, but I'd recommend pulling out a little bit of the 2K to maybe 6K range by about 3 to 4 dB, just to help soften your kick because it's plenty present. If you remove some of that range, your kick is still gonna cut through nice and clear, because I also hear a lot of that information on your snare drum. So in other words, your kick and your snare are really living in the same realm as far as frequency response. So it's kind of like, it's abrasive sounding to a certain extent, but again, if that's what you're going for, by all means, keep it as it is, because overall, I think the production is killer. But again, maybe experiment with removing a little bit of that range in your kick drum. It'll help smooth out the sound of your mix. Great work, and keep me posted on your future music. All right, our third mix here comes from Mr. Nicholas. Let's see what we got. Okay, Nicholas, I dig what I'm hearing. Now, a few things I want to bring up. Let me just say this. If you're going for a more raw, old school live style production, then keep the editing as it is, but I do hear a lot of amp noise in between the guitar performance, especially before the music kicks in. Also, I'm noticing some of the guitars are slightly out of tune. And the big one for me, and this has more to do with the mix, is that I definitely hear a lot of master bus compression that's really clamping down on the mix and making the mix sound pumpy and almost kind of distant. So if you're going for the raw aesthetic that's kind of has imperfections in sort of like a punk rock kind of way, then by all means leave the slightly out of tune guitars and leave the amp noise in there. That could be cool if that's the aesthetic you're going for. But the one thing that is, I would say, kind of objectively somewhat of an issue is that I do hear a lot of pumping on the master bus, and it's darkening up your mix and making it sound sort of distant. So I would back off on the master bus compression and make sure that you're not achieving any more than 4 dB on the peaks. And that's my advice here. So again, give that a shot. Let me know how it works on your future productions or on this production, and keep me posted. All right, our fourth mix comes from Pontus. Okay, I thought I heard some weird edits in there. Let me just make sure I'm hearing things right. Okay, well, Pontus, a few things here. I dig the riffing, dig the attitude, dig the cool dissonant thing that you're doing with the lead guitars. The one thing I'm noticing is that there's not a lot of low end in your mix, and there's a whole boatload of kind of like mid-range in the 700 to 2K, maybe 1K-ish range, build up there, especially with the snare drum and the guitars, and I don't hear much bass guitar. But the biggest thing here, and this has more to do with the performance and the source than the actual mix, is I hear some editing weirdness happening on your cymbals or maybe mix as a whole. Let me play that back once more. I'm pretty sure it's on your drum tracks. I hear something was edited and not crossfaded properly, and there's gaps in the audio. So please go back and pay attention to that. Remember, you're not gonna be able to polish off your mix until the source is right in the first place. But overall, I dig what I'm hearing. Just give those tweaks a shot. Remember, pay attention to your mid-range. Make sure there's not too much of a buildup at the 1K range. Right now, the guitars and snare are fighting for that range. And make sure there's some more low end there, especially from your bass guitar and your kick drum. Keep me posted. All right, our final mix here comes from Simon. Okay, Simon, I really like what I'm hearing. Really cool riffing. I really like the drum sound. It's got a nice roominess to it. I love the clank of the bass guitar. I can hear all of your riffing nice and clear. To be completely honest with you, man, I wouldn't really change much about this, but what I would like to hear is the mix with some vocals. This sounds like a song that is a song. So I kind of feel like there's something missing as far as the song itself. So once you have some vocals thrown into your mix, send it to me so I can hear the final product, and I can't wait to hear it. But overall, man, you're off to a good start. The source sounds sound great. I really dig the drum sound, especially the direction you're going. I dig the riffing. The musicianship sounds awesome. I love the clank on the bass. My kind of stuff. So Simon, again, once you have this song complete, please send it over and I'd love to check it out. And thanks so much for your submission. So I'd just like to shout out and thank everyone for submitting this excellent group of mixes. And if you're interested in submitting a mix for a review, there are detailed instructions in this video's description. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload one of our weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. If you're interested in some Frightbox swag, I've got t-shirts, mugs, and a ton of other cool stuff on the way. There's a link below in the Frightbox merch store in this video's description. And again, you could have access for absolutely free to my crisp and clear heavy mix formula. The heavy mix formula comes with a cheat sheet PDF with all of my starting points for EQ and compression, as well as individual lessons for all of the main instruments within a heavy production. And finally, a multi-track download that you can download so you can mix along with me that go along with each of the lessons. There's a link below to the heavy mix formula that you can click and you could have direct access right now for absolutely free. Until next time, happy mixing.